Just like Finding Paradise, the game I'm about to review is an old but gold one for me. BioShock Infinite was the final game made by Irrational Games before it rebranded as Ghost Story Games, and was also Ken Levine's send-off to the beloved BioShock series. However, for the sake of this review, I felt it would be good to remind myself of the game by installing my Steam copy of it,
because I already bought the physical copy,
and have another crack at it. I'm not gonna say I hate the game, but I will admit that it was difficult for me to keep on playing. Maybe my disappointment is the reason why there aren't any jokes yet in this review, so here's a quick edgy one to bring some much needed levity.
More power to you as far as I'm concerned.
Except you haven't sat there and... I'm just trying to work that out. I mean...
Ha, gotcha.
You have got me. I'm trying to work that through in my head. Yeah, it took a while,
It did, yeah.
Well, you have voluntary...
Does that mean that the game is, I dare say,
trash?
Hell no, I would never call BioShock Infinite that. Listen, I had a friggin' BioShock Infinite Monument Tower key. I had a friggin' awesome BioShock Infinite poster next to my Paramore ones. I got pictures next to cosplaying Elizabeth Comstocks, and on that same occasion where I got that picture, I brought my BioShock Infinite physical copy to Manchester Comic Con and told Troy Baker that I freaking love him. No surprise also, but before I played To the Moon and Finding Paradise, BioShock Infinite was my favourite game of all time. So the one person that's watching this thinking, whoa, this is super biased against the game, is seriously mistaken. Now let me start talking about technicalities. Graphics. I called it a major pillar of any game in my first review. When it comes to any AAA game that aims towards realism, 6 years can be a serious downer. One advantage that BioShock Infinite has is its art style. The almost cartoony look of the characters, especially when it comes to the lead female character, Elizabeth, has a little more longevity. I have noticed the age of the game a little bit when it comes to maybe facial animations, but honestly the game still looks amazing. The brightly lit vistas of Columbia, the city the whole game is set in, looks great on PC.
It fails to capture Father Comstock's absolute
Colombian people.
As much as the characters, especially for the time, felt alive and real, even more does this statement ring true for the world. Sure, chattering pedestrians are a thing, but it's the attention to detail that immerses the player. Posters and signs, the architecture of the buildings, the interior design. I mean, what game has me buzzing about interior design? I know every review mentions it, but when the world that you're building is a floating colonial city in the sky, and that city feels real, you know something special is happening here. The only negative that I can bring up when it comes to the graphics might just be how I think the facial animation pales in comparison to other games, e.g. The Last of Us.
Dance, come on, let's go.
Why? What could be better than this?
Now, gameplay. It's good. It's fun. Now, story. Lord, I'm just kidding. So in these reviews, I don't really like to go in detail, like, when you click a W, that is to make you go forward in the moving direction, so you can move the mousey on the enemy's head, and push the left click button on the mousey, and where the crosshair meets a head, and boom, that's called a header shot. Nah, this isn't IGN. I'm sure you can figure out what's going on from what you can see on this video or any other BioShock Infinite Let's Play. Instead, I'm gonna say how I felt while playing. It's a first person shooter, so I've got to talk about the shooting. Duh! I would say it's alright, 6 out of 10. Now, my scale for this is probably like this. A 1 is Black Ops on the PS Vita, if you remember that by any chance. And a 10 is McCree or Tracer on Overwatch on PC.
Fudge, I love that little ping noise when you hit a head.
BioShock Infinite does have a nice rewarding like orchestra sound when you go aimbot Calvin on some racist heads. There are a few guns as well, but at certain difficulties there are only a few that really work. Talking about difficulties, I would recommend that if you play this game for the first time, just put it on normal. I know you want to show how your is ready for hard mode, but trust me, shooting bullet sponges gets boring really quickly, and I think this kind of implementation in the harder difficulties is actually pretty bad. Being a BioShock game, apart from doing the shooty with the right hand, something else entirely happens with your left hand.
Get your mind out of the gutter.
In this game they're called vigors, which are pretty much spells. There's a reason this mechanic is a staple of the BioShock games, as it absolutely makes combat more exciting as it gives you much more choice. I also like how different Vigors interact with each other to do cool combo wombos. This, added with the use of skylines, makes playing BioShock Infinite quite fun the first time you play. The soundtrack, like most of the games in my top favorite list, is amazing. Yes, I think the circle will be unbroken. Because I've listened to the OST of this song many times, there are particular tracks that are related to Elizabeth that I really like. Even more, I love the use of diegetic music in the game,
Oh my days, that's a big word, Givero.
and it leads to a lot of interesting moments. Now the story. Obviously, there's technically no way I can have an in-depth discussion on the story without spoiling things. That's why instead I'm gonna describe it in a few sentences. The story of BioShock Infinite follows Booker DeWitt, a former Pinkerton agent, as he rescues a girl from a floating city so that he can pay off his debts. It has one of those stories that had me thinking about it when I was away. No joke, I would be with my friends, and in my head I would be thinking, what's up with those tear powers? What's up with their pinkies? Are we even gonna get out of there alive? What are they even gonna do when they get out there alive? I was captivated by the mysteries that the game poses, and how those mysteries are uncovered is some of the best storytelling I've ever witnessed. Now, this is where the mood changes a little bit. There are some things about the way the game tells its story that I don't think fondly of. There are moments in the game where things happen and I think, how did you know that, or why did you even do that? Going back to it, there are definitely parts of the plot where the motivations of the characters seem a little bit silly and a little bit unrealistic. I can't get too much into the weeds, but I do feel that the game and the story is a bit almost unsynchronized. I honestly don't know how to explain it better, and I feel like there are other games that get its story across to the player much better, e.g. The Last of Us. Out of everything, I would say that the game's biggest thing that made me not finish my latest playthrough was the pacing. There's something about the tempo of when you get story information and when you get to shoot our racismers in the face that is so weird that at some point I started to straight up get bored. I wish I could expand my point more, but this is the best that I could think of. For me, that is a major downer on the game, but I started to notice this from the second playthrough, and there are many games that I ended up loving more because of a second playthrough. Transistor. Now remember, I did say I don't think the game is
Trash.
It's one of the best storytelling games out there. It's just at the time I was one of those people that was like, OMG, The Last of Us is good, but BioShock Infinite is way better, Ken Levine, give me a kiss. After my last playthrough, I have actually swapped Joel and Ellie's story to third place, moving BioInfinity down to number 4. Now for my review. I'm gonna add another score,
I know, I'm sorry. I know 2 scores are supposed to be enough.
but I feel like this better represents how I feel. I give it a I'm a critic score of 9.5. For that generation of games, BioShock Infinite was an absolute evolution on how to tell a compelling story, but with a really close look, there are blemishes that take it away from being a masterpiece. Now before I give my personal feeling score, I want to say that additional score. I'm gonna call this the first time playthrough score. I give BioShock Infinite a first time playthrough score of 10 out of 10. BioShock Infinite absolutely captures anyone who plays it for the first time, and is an experience that I would pay any money for someone to go into my head and wipe out my memories of the game so I can play it new again. Now for my personal feeling score. I give BioShock Infinite a 9. This takes into account the first from the last time I played the game. I hope to figure out one day what it is that made BioShock Infinite lose its spark from the first time I played, but I can't ever deny how transformative it was for my first trek through Columbia's streets, and it's kind of the reason why I'm so into these story type games. This one was less about the funnies compared to my first review, but I really hope you enjoy watching it nonetheless. This felt more like I was breaking up with like a long-time girlfriend or something. If you want to see more video reviews, or if you want to see something else entirely, please comment below so I know what's going on in your noggin. Anyways, thanks for watching, and as we UK mandem would say, safe man.